Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Citizen NFL podcast. I'm Justin Ritzel, joined once again by Robert Harding and Chris Sciria. Guys, we took a week off. How was your Thanksgiving?
I worked. No, it was good. It was good. No, I'm kidding.
It was a dog holiday.
No, it was a nice Thanksgiving. I just noticed, Justin, why have you been growing a mustache, man? I just noticed that.
Well, today is actually the last day of Movember,
Wow.
so
I just noticed it for the first time.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's a pretty weak mustache. It's really only been going for a couple weeks, so.
All right, well, keep it going.
But
my Thanksgiving was good. Thanks for asking, Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I supposed to ask you a question?
No, I'm just trolling. It's okay.
No, really.
well
Okay.
then.
Yeah.
So, guys, pretty interesting news dropped a couple days ago.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I'm not talking about the Dolphins' decision to stick with Jay Cutler.
Ooh.
They had no choice. Doesn't matter. It's rearranging.
Sick burn.
It's rearranging deck chairs in the Titanic. Okay, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is in.
One could also say that about the New York Giants,
Indeed.
who decided to sit down longtime quarterback Eli Manning, and they're going to go with former Jets quarterback Geno Smith for the time being. Who knows if this is going to last one game? Who knows if it'll last half a game like the Nathan Peterman experiment? Maybe it'll go the rest of the season. Who knows? Guys, just what was your initial reaction to the news?
Big Blue who? Get it?
Is that stealing a headline from somebody?
that could have been the New York Post headline yesterday. By the way, look, I think that the Giants are 2-9. They're not going anywhere. Obviously, Ben McAdoo is a lame duck coach, although maybe he doesn't believe it. I think he feels that he needs to do something, anything to see what he has at the quarterback position down the road, which is fine. Except you're starting the Jets cast off, okay? You're starting the guy that your next door neighbor, not even your next, your roommate basically, your stadium mate, has deemed unworthy and cut, and you're saying that you're going to start him over Eli Manning, a player who's won you 2 Super Bowls, who's put up some pretty good numbers over the last 13 years. Now, as I wrote in my column today on AuburnPub.com, if they had gone to their rookie, Davis Webb was his name, I believe, yeah. I think if you had started the rookie, I think it would have been a little more believable for Giants fans, thinking like, yeah, this is a move that we're doing looking toward the future. Geno Smith is not the Giants' future, and he's barely the Giants' present. So, I mean, if you're saying that Davis Webb is not ready to start now, then to me, you should be starting Eli Manning. It's just it's basically like throwing crap on the wall, and we'll see what sticks. Okay?
Wow.
Should we have a problem with the fact that they're benching Eli more, or have a problem with kind of how they've just handled the whole thing?
I mean, look, it got botched, no doubt about it. Okay? Is Eli worthy of benching? Arguably, I mean, the record is 2-9, and he has not put up good numbers. But you could say he hasn't had an offensive line. His wide receiver core has been banged up. I mean, and obviously Beckham has been gone for a good chunk of the year. I mean, what quarterback could really make anything out of those conditions? So you want to say that Eli is a scapegoat for the Giants' woes this year, I should say. I think you could say that. I think he's getting the short end of the stick here. And to be honest with you, I think when you've acquired that stature as a quarterback in the NFL, where you've won 2 Super Bowls and you've been your team starter for 13 years, you should make the call when you step down. And I think Eli Manning is enough of a professional that if he thought that he was playing that poorly and was playing to the detriment of his team, that he would voluntarily step down or sit down. So this whole thing's been botched. Ben McAdoo's a goner. Jerry Reese probably will be a goner too. So it's all moot in the long run. But still, you've done something is that you've turned Eli into a sympathetic figure.
Wow, covered all your bases there. I think this was I think the biggest problem, and just hearing from Giants fans, it's just how it was handled, and it's not so much that they benched Eli, it's who they benched him for, and just how they executed this whole thing. Because when you talk about moving to a new quarterback, you're talking about the team's overall failures, and that begins in my mind with the front office. They just haven't done a good job, especially over the last several seasons. Jerry Reese should have been gone a long time ago. He hasn't given the Giants the right personnel to win, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and address the offensive line. And injuries have been a problem. Chris mentioned the wide receiving core. When your top 4 receivers go down, and you have to throw to a bunch of nobodies, I mean, it's not going to make you look good. And when you have an offensive line in front of you that couldn't block a paper bag, it's a bit challenging too. So, I think if they went with Davis Webb, at least on the Eli issue, you look at that and say, okay, they're trying to evaluate this kid. They don't really know what he can bring in a regular season experiment. We know what Geno is capable of or not capable of, but just the way that they handled this from top to bottom is the whole season is just a disaster.
Botched.
Let's call this what it is.
Yes.
Not saying obviously they're 2-9, so it's not like Eli was doing a great job of winning them games this year. But let's be honest. They're putting in the worst possible quarterback so they can lose on purpose.
Well, yeah.
It could be tanking. Yeah, I don't think you can debate that. Sure.
Because, all it takes is one game where Eli does, kind of does his thing where he comes out of nowhere and throws 3 touchdowns and they win a game they shouldn't win. And suddenly they've cost themselves 3 or 4 spots in the draft. So
yeah.
I think that is plain and simple the reason why they're doing this. But I will say, I think, I think they must have had an idea. I said this to Chris yesterday. They must have had an idea that they were going to bench Eli going back at least a few weeks. Because the season, this was pretty much a doomed season from, you could almost say, week 1 on. Mm-hmm. They come into the season and Beckham's already hurt. They get thrashed by Dallas week 1, who, Dallas might not even be good. They get off to a terrible start. So there's no way this is just kind of coming out of the blue. So why not show Eli the respect of saying, listen, we want to go in a different direction. What do you want to do? Mm-hmm. Do you want to be put on waivers and go play for a team where you can go be competitive this year? Because you can't tell me looking at some of the starting quarterbacks in the league right now that there aren't some teams who would say, you know what, we could use Eli Manning.
Yeah.
Hello, Jacksonville Jaguars. Tom Coughlin has been that's been a popular idea. Denver. So I think they, even though, which I'll get to in a few minutes, I'm sure, but despite my feelings on how good Eli is, I still think that he's an accomplished enough quarterback and a tenured quarterback where you should have shown the respect of kind of giving him more of his say of how this was going to go.
I heard, I think maybe Adam Schefter tweeted it out last night, but that Eli's asked for his release.
No, that was a fake Schefter.
Oh, that was a fake Schefter? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, it wouldn't, the thing is, I don't think Eli Manning would probably do that at this point of the season. But after the season, I wouldn't be surprised if he asked for his release or at least some type of a trade or something. Because I believe he's got another year left on his contract at least 1 year, so. Well,
and it all depends on, because he's still under a contract, so it's really going to be a question, I think, of what the new regime wants. There's clearly going to be a new head coach, but you're also talking, in all likelihood, a new GM, certainly a remake of the front office is in order. So, really it's going to be up to those new leaders to come in and say, okay, this is the direction we want to go in. either cut Manning loose, which, then you're getting the salary cap and, the cap hit and dead cap figures and all that other stuff. But, it's really going to be their decision to make, which is why this is even more perplexing to me, because if you're Jerry Reese or Ben McAdoo, you can't possibly be sitting there thinking that, the two of you, both those idiots, are going to be around in 2018. Yeah. So what future decisions could you possibly be making? If I were you, I'd just look to get out of this season and start, thinking about my future career, because it ain't in the Meadowlands, that's for sure.
I'm curious if the Giants are serious about tearing it down and starting from scratch, okay, and that means a new coach, new GM, and Eli is going to be gone. Here, the nuclear option: do you shop Odell Beckham Jr.? Because I'll tell you, what you would get for him? At least 2 number ones. I think you'd get at least 2 number ones for Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, I'm curious if the Giants really want to go full scale rebuild with a new GM and a new coach, and you want to just nuke everything that you have now and completely go in another direction. Is Odell Beckham Jr. on the trading block?
Here's what I wonder, and I don't think they do that just because of Odell's stardom,
right?
Being in New York and all that.
but let me interrupt you there for a second. This guy has not been a good. Good. You know what I mean? I'm not saying off the field. I mean, the penalties, the pouting, the sulking.
It's one of the best receivers in the league.
You're
talking about sulking?
But I'm just saying.
Come on.
The stuff the stuff with Norman last year with the Panthers. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff on the field.
That was a two-way street, though.
I give you that, but I'm just saying though that with Beckham, there's been a lot of extracurricular stuff in the locker room, on the field, a lot of headaches, and you're going to put up with those headaches because he's putting up the numbers. I'll give you that, okay? Mm-hmm. But if you're the Giants and you're a new GM and a new coach, do you want to deal with that, or do you want to trade this guy while he's at his highest value and to get 2 number ones? And move in a different direction. You might be able to get your franchise quarterback with those number 1 picks.
They could get their franchise quarterback based on how
I'll give you that. Well,
they don't need to trade Beckham.
They're not going to have the number 1 pick. I mean, that's Cleveland's to lose, okay?
Sure.
But yeah, they'll be in the top.
Rich
right,
draft.
that's true. But you could still trade and get 2 number 1s and build for the future and draft other positions in need, like offensive line or defense or something, okay? Running back. I'm just saying that Odell Beckham Jr. has caused a lot of headaches for the Giants front office.
But has he though? Like it's on the
has
field.
He?
It's on the field stuff though. It's if GMs were so concerned with that kind of stuff, then they wouldn't put up with the crap that's actually problems. Mm-hmm. Like off the field stuff that are serious issues. I think like the whole the punching, the kicking that thing. Like that's I think a GM will deal with that kind of stuff because it's all just kind of. He's emotional, yes, definitely, but I think it's all because he's just a passionate guy.
I think there's other ways of being passionate.
Is he immature?
That's the thing.
Yes,
right.
But
and you know something? He's not 15. He's what, 25, 26? It's time to grow up.
He's a millennial 25 or 26.
Well, I don't look. I know this
isn't like back in the day.
This guy's had his butt kissed since he became a great high school player and then at LSU. Okay, I'll give you that. But there comes a point. You're a professional. You're an adult. Act like one. Okay. I'm not saying you can't do touchdown celebrations. I'm not saying that you can't spin the ball when you get a first down and get them and jump up and down a little bit. But some of this other stuff. I'm sorry, it needs to stop. You're not 20 years old anymore. You're 25, 26. Time to be a grown-up. I'm sorry.
It's like I'm talking to my mom.
Right. Someone got to be the grown-up in the room here, guys. You know what I mean?
Dad, quit lecturing
me. I don't know. I think if they do what I would do, which is let Eli go and draft another quarterback this year, I think it would be a bad decision to take a quarterback and then get rid of his best weapon. And I do think the Giants still have like some talent on their offense. If you bring back Beckham, Sterling Shepard is a former first-round pick who's actually not having a terrible year.
Yeah. All things considered.
Evan Ingram is a tight end they just drafted who's having a nice rookie year.
Yeah.
I think that, honestly, even if they decide not to get rid of Eli and go with him next year, I don't think the Giants are I don't think it's crazy to say they add a talented player or two in the draft in the offseason that they could be right back kind of in the mix a little bit next year. They're still going to have an above-average defense. So, it wouldn't shock me if they hold on to Eli and say, you know what, we're going to get a new coach, maybe a new GM, a little bit of a different direction, but we kind of like some of the pieces that we have here.
I think you have to draft a quarterback in the first round if you're the Giants. I think you have to.
You
have to have an heir.
I don't mind doing that in terms of the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers thing, where we're just going to groom this guy and we'll push the Eli situation down the road a couple of years. I don't mind that at all.
I think one big glaring thing with the whole Eli decision is that offensive line, and this has been a problem for years for the Giants. And it was even a problem last year when they went 11-5. They still managed to win games. The difference though this year is that there are so many injuries on offense, and the blame gets put on Eli. Has he made some bad throws and played poorly in games? Sure, but a big reason for that is the offensive line blocking in front of him. He doesn't have one, and you can bring in Geno, you can bring in a rookie, you can draft they'll probably end up with a top 5 pick next year. You can draft one of those star quarterbacks from college that are out there, but you still have this glaring problem. They need to bolster that offensive line because you can't have any passing attack without it, and you need to run the ball too. So,
which is something that they haven't had. They haven't had a running game since Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw.
Right.
So, but yeah, like I said, I don't think they're. I do think their 2-9 record is a little deceiving, just based off what we've talked about, which is the injuries and all that. So, I am curious because I kind of have something I want to say, but I'm just curious on what your guys' take on just how good Eli really is, because it seems like a lot of people are a little bit of in my opinion, prisoner of the moment and making him out to be a better player than he really has been. Just because people are, like you said, he's a sympathetic figure now.
Right.
Well, I think the way, because I looked up his stats and just seen how it measures out on paper, and one thing that really stuck out to me is, he's put up some big numbers. He's had 4,000-yard seasons. He's had, I think he has over 330 touchdowns, high interception numbers, which, isn't Favre has high interception numbers. If you play long enough, you're going to have high interception numbers. But the big thing that stuck out to me, though, is, his win-loss record. Of course, this year doesn't help. But, you think about those Super Bowl teams that they played on. I mean, one of the years that they won the Super Bowl, they were 9-7 in the regular season. So, you're talking about teams that got in, benefiting from a weak NFC East. Certainly they took care of business in the playoffs, but I think that's really, for me, this is a quarterback. Yeah, he put up some big numbers, but in today's NFL, passing quarterbacks who are, good can put up some decent numbers. Does that make him a Hall of Fame candidate? I say no. I put him on par with, not numbers wise, but to compare him to someone that Giants fans will be familiar with is Phil Simms. Phil Simms won one Super Bowl. Certainly led. He got the Super Bowl 25 team to that point for the most part. Hostetler took care of the rest. But this is a quarterback. He wasn't the greatest of his era. Led a good team. Won a couple Super Bowls, and that's that. Does that mean that he has to go in the Hall of Fame? Of course not. He was a good quarterback. Eli, good quarterback. Should he be put in the same class as the Peyton Mannings, Tom Brady's, the list goes, Aaron Rodgers of the world? No. Those are the Hall of Fame quarterbacks of his generation. Eli Manning is not a Hall of Fame quarterback.
I think because he's not done yet, we can't necessarily say that. I think we need to see.
Oh, wow.
No, because he's not done yet.
He might be done.
We're right. He could be done. This could be, for all we know, he might say, something. I got 2 rings.
He might have been done last year the way
I've
he was
done
playing.
everything. Look, I've done everything I can. I got 2 rings. I'm done. Or he might say, you know something, I want to go someplace else and see what I can do. I don't got anything left in the tank. So let's say he pulls like with his brother. He goes to a place like Denver and he lights it up and he has a great second act and he throws another 30 touchdown passes. Let's say he has another 2 or 3 really good years where he throws between 25 and 35 touchdown passes. Teams get to the playoffs, things like that. Then I think you're speaking differently about him. Robert, I agree with you. Right now, if you say that this is his last year, he's borderline Hall of Fame, probably doesn't get in, like Phil Simms. But if he comes back and plays someplace else and has 2 or 3 more quality seasons, then I think you elevate him to like, you know something? He's knocking on the door and he might just get in. I mean, the Manning name does mean something, okay? I mean, I think
I think that'll in the end it'll help him. I think that people look at his resume now, and if you look at the numbers and you compare it to other quarterbacks with those numbers, you say, oh well, you know, he should get in. But there's more to those numbers, and especially the era that he played in.
Let me say one more thing about his Hall of Fame chances, okay? I think that one thing that gets overstated, I think sometimes, is the postseason. I think sometimes people say, oh, he won this many Super Bowls, he should be in the Hall of Fame because of that. And I completely get that. I think with Eli Manning, it's how he played in those 2 Super Bowls. I mean, some of the plays he made. The play he made to David Tyree. I mean, he had 2 of his great... I think he put on 2 of the greatest quarterbacking performances that a quarterback could perform in the Super Bowl in those 2 games. And I think that that's going to be part of his... When he gets presented in Canton in a few years, the presenter is going to say, yep, this is what he did in the regular season, but look what he did in those 2 Super Bowls, the 2 biggest games of the season, and this is what he did. And he beat the Patriots, who people are going to say, right, twice. Not just once, but twice.
Of his era.
Right.
Yeah.
Of the last 20, what's the best team in the NFL the last 20 years? 15 years, definitely. 20. The Patriots, okay? And he beat them in the Super Bowl twice. That's the only team to have beaten Belichick and Brady is Eli Manning, okay? So I think that's going to be something that when the Hall of Fame stuff comes up, that's going to be, I think if he gets in, it's going to be because of that. Right there is those 2 games. That's what's going to put him over the top because obviously the body of work in the regular season, above average, not Hall of Fame, but above average. But I think those 2 Super Bowls is what gets him into the Hall of Fame eventually.
Chris, you mentioned the Tyree catch. I think, and I'm sure I'm not, coming up with something crazy here, but you could say his throw to Manningham in his second Super Bowl is... You could put that up against any throw in Super Bowl history.
Absolutely.
That was incredible.
Yeah, that throw. The Tyree play was a better catch because Manning basically chucked that in the middle of the field.
Yeah, but remember,
he got out of pressure too.
He was dead. He was dead to right sack. That's what made that play amazing.
He chucked it up basically.
Right.
That throw to Manningham. You know, how many quarterbacks are going to make that throw?
That's a big boy throw, no doubt about it. That's a big boy throw. You got to have a major league arm. Accuracy, the strength to make a throw like that. Yeah. But I still think that play in the Super Bowl with Tyree, the fact he got out of that jam and was able to get himself free to get a ball out. And I don't think he just threw it up for grabs. I think he saw Tyree in the area and put it in that spot. I'm not saying he aimed for it directly. But still.
Yeah. All right, so let me get my piece out and then we can move on.
I guess we'll allow it.
Since I wrote down all these fancy stats, so okay. So let me get the good out of the way with Eli. So yeah, he won 2 Super Bowls. As Chris mentioned, it's not only the fact that he won 2 Super Bowls; it's who he beat to get there. So he beat Tom Brady twice and outplayed Tom Brady twice. He also outplayed and beat Brett Favre once, and outplayed and beat Aaron Rodgers once. Yeah, both times were on the road in Lambeau Field. So. Huge credit to him because, not too many people have done that. But statistically, I mean, you look at it, and I think, and Chris pointed this out, postseason it shouldn't be a be-all, end-all because it's such a small sample size. I think Eli is basically Joe Flacco with 1 extra ring. Maybe a notch above. But I think that's a fair comparison.
I think it's a fair comparison, but in all due respect, Joe.
Don't get me wrong. I would take Eli over Joe Flacco any day of the week.
You can't spell elite without Eli.
Oh, you've been saying that all day, haven't you?
So, Eli started playing in 2004.
Oh, he's got the numbers. There we go.
Here are the numbers. So since 2004, there have been 16 quarterbacks to throw 4,000 passes. Eli is 11th in touchdown percentage, 14th in interception percentage, meaning he's the third most percentage for interceptions. He's 14th in passer rating, 12th in yards per attempt. So he's not top 10 in any category that basically goes off percentages. So it takes out kind of the...
And this is since he was drafted.
Since he was drafted. So his career passer rating, worse than Alex Smith, worse than Andy Dalton, worse than Sam Bradford, worse than Jay Cutler.
All right. How many yards has he thrown for in his career?
Okay, but he's obviously going to have a lot of yards because he's played a long time.
But
his yards per attempt is not good.
All right, I gotta look this up. I'm sorry. I think that those are things that are good. You gotta look at the numbers. I mean, you can say percentages.
Your new stats.
I mean, you can say percentages and everything. I mean, that's fine.
Name me one season. I would say for me, it's 2011, 2012. He was legitimately good. He was also very good in 2015.
50,000 yards, 334 touchdowns, 222 interceptions. I mean, that's... he's got 14 touchdown passes and only 7 interceptions this year. That's not bad for a 2-9 team, by the way. I mean, the more I look at it...
Here we go. Chris is,
I mean, the more I look at it, I mean...
The more I look at it,
I
he's
think
a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I think he gets in the Hall of Fame.
Let me finish. Postseason passer rating. This is in an era where it's never been easier to be a quarterback and to rack up stats. Postseason passer rating, 87.4. Let's see. He has 60 career games with 2 or more interceptions. How many of those games do you think the Giants literally lost because Eli threw a stupid interception?
Well, I've watched many of them over the years on Sunday Night Football. So
what do NFL coaches always say? If we don't win the turnover battle, we're not going to win the game.
Yep.
How many times do you think the Giants have lost the turnover battle and lost games because Eli Manning went full Eli Manning? He's never had a season where he's had a passer rating over 95. Like I said, in an era where it's easier than ever.
See, I think the passer rating stat is overrated, to be honest with you. I really do.
Well, I mean, look at least for this era, because I to a certain extent, you can't compare like Tom Brady's passer rating to Dan Marino or Jim Kelly because that era they were just lower. But I think if you just look at this era, it's very fair to use passer rating. He's the third best quarterback of his draft class.
Yeah.
I would take Roethlisberger or Rivers over Eli. Just based on quarterback, not situation, but just based on their ability individually to play quarterback, I'd take both those guys over Eli in a heartbeat. So, Chris, you can take all your yardage that because he's thrown 1 million passes in his career, but
I don't think he's thrown 1 million.
In terms of just being an efficient, not going to kill your team quarterback, Eli is not very good.
Well, I think the yardage stat, especially for this era of quarterbacks, is going to be a bit misleading because back in the day of the Marinos and the Kellys and that era, 4,000 yards was an exception. It wasn't what was normally done. Eli Manning would throw for 4,000 yards and he would be barely in the top 10.
By the way, Eli Manning all time in yards and TD passes is number 7.
Shout out to Football Reference.
Which I should mention. This is Eli's greatest accomplishment. Is a lot of that is because he's been able to stay on the field because he's never missed a start.
Well, but that's
a big part. That's to his credit. That's a huge part of quarterbacking, and I give him a lot of credit for that.
Your boy, Bryce Favre. Oh my God, Brett Favre. Holy cow! What am I thinking?
Bryce Favre.
Yeah, Bryce Favre. That's Brett's brother. You didn't hear him, obviously.
Nice.
Irv had another.
So, and further to his credit, the Giants were willing to continue to start him and not finish him in these games just so he could keep the streak intact. And he said, no, that's not right in the spirit of having that record. So if you're not going to play me the whole game, don't play me at all. Yeah. So I give him a lot of credit for that. But, I think if you stack him up against the other quarterbacks of this generation, I think he's, quite average.
Yeah. Well, I think what complicates it is the postseason mark.
Is the 8 games where he was really good.
And the fact that he has 2 rings because, I remember this with Joe Flacco when the Ravens won. It's like, and that's where the whole is Flacco elite?
Yeah, it was the same exact thing.
And it's this era of football that has put so much value on the quarterback position. And so if you have any success there, it's like, okay, well, where do you rank compared to Brady, Rodgers, Peyton Manning, players like that, Ben Roethlisberger? Where do you measure up against that? Are you elite? Are you in the top tier of quarterbacks? And who said you have to be? Russell Wilson has a Super Bowl ring, and he's a very good quarterback. But is he Tom Brady? Is he Aaron Rodgers? I think that the way that Drew Brees is another example. He's put up gaudy numbers in New Orleans because they're a pass-first attack. I think that just the way that the quarterback position has been measured, and you measure Eli against those players, Brees, Rodgers, and so on, you just take a step back and say, okay, he's put up big numbers, but what are the knocks on him? I think you can find a lot more knocks against Eli than you can all those other players.
By the way, Eli Manning has 334 touchdown passes. He's tied with for 7th place in the all-time list?
Who?
Phillip Rivers. It's interesting, isn't it?
Indeed.
How many interceptions has Phil Rivers thrown compared to Eli?
That one I'd have to really look up. Hold on. You really want to know that? I'll look it
Well,
up.
I know it's less. That's why I asked.
Okay. So
We'll wait.
but anyways,
let's move on.
yeah.
But let's stick with quarterbacks, and let's stick with quarterbacks in the NFC East. Who's not had who has had a couple bad weeks, worse weeks than Eli Manning, is Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
What do you think his play is as simple as Ezekiel Elliott is not there, and maybe this guy just isn't as good as he was made out to be? Is it that simple?
I don't think it's. He made some plays last year, but I think having Elliott is a big piece for their offense. I think he's a good quarterback, certainly a capable quarterback, but I think this exposes the fact that really Elliott's the MVP of their team. He adds a dimension. He's one of those rare running backs that, in today's NFL, the talk is, if you have a good offensive line, any running back can rush for 1,000 yards. Maybe that's true, but Elliott is a rare talent. Like, he's going to get 1,000 yards, the offensive line be damned, and Dallas just happens to have a very good one too, which makes him look even better. But that's just another dimension of their offense that makes this team so much different than the one that we see now. A lot more pressure on Prescott, and I think that it's a different situation than he came into. When he became the starter, Elliott was there. They were really a 1-2 punch. Elliott could run the ball. He made some good passes. They could put together a good win that way. Without him, it really puts more pressure on him. And the Dallas passing attack is not prolific. And Prescott is part of the blame. They've had some injuries on the offensive line too. But I think that this just exposes the fact that Elliott's that much bigger of a piece for that team than I think they realized.
All I'm gonna say is that there's been a lot of guys that have come in as rookies and lit things up, and then the second year, the off season, the defensive coordinators study more film and they find ways to try to stop these guys. And if you're one of the greats, you can get through that and you can continue to play at a high level, even though everybody's trying to stop you, throwing everything but the kitchen sink at you. So I think it's too early to write off Prescott. I mean, I think we got to see what happens in year 3. I think, like you said, Robert, Elliott, losing him is a huge thing. I mean, I think any quarterback, if you don't have your running game. I mean, would Troy Aikman has been a good quarterback if he didn't have Emmitt Smith? Okay, I think you could say, yeah, absolutely. But, I think the Cowboys are a team that, they're in trouble. And I think they need to just say, okay, this season didn't go the way we wanted, the whole suspension thing with Elliott and everything else, and we need to start a new next season, fresh slate, and try to get better. And we'll see what happens. Like I said, I think Prescott, it's it's been a tough year, but we'll see how he responds, because the great ones, they will respond.
Mm.
I do wonder if the Cowboys need to start worrying about just kind of not only, I mean, they'll have Ezekiel Elliott back, so he'll have his running back, but I wonder if they need to start worrying about kind of the pass catching options they have there, because whether it's totally his fault or not, like Des Bryant is not having a good year. He just doesn't have that connection with Prescott. I mean, Cole Beasley, Terrence Williams, like this is really the best we can put around him. Like Jason Witten's a dinosaur.
Well, I mean, Jason Witten, one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, definitely. Easily.
But I mean, he's 30-something years old, and you got to start looking eventually to replace him.
He's going to catch those 8-yard passes and move the sticks a little bit, but
now, not being a Cowboys fan, I can't say this with authority, but as the Cowboys, there are bigger issues on defense, maybe. I mean, yeah, Prescott's having a bad year, no doubt about it. Not a great year as he did last year. I give you that. But I mean, a great defense can really make your offense look pretty darn good, even if you're not having a great offensive year. So,
and you could say that they kind of flipped that last year because their offense was so good that their defense couldn't get exposed. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a good point, Chris. Their defense needs some work too. So we talked probably a month or so ago about just kind of this next generation of quarterbacks, and the Deshaun Watsons, the Carson Wentz's, Prescott. I don't remember exactly how you guys felt about Prescott then, but are you feeling a little more uneasy about kind of his long-term viability as their starter?
I think that I think they'll be fine. I think the fact that this Elliott thing got dragged out, and that's a key piece of their offense.
It's been a distraction.
It's not only a key piece in the rushing game; it's a key piece in the passing game. You mentioned the pass catching options he has. That's one of them. So to lose a versatile player like that certainly hurts. I think that if this continues even with Elliott in the lineup, then you have to start wondering, okay, should we have gotten rid of Romo that quickly and started his burgeoning broadcast career?
It's probably better for his health that he did call quits.
I think Romo made the right decision.
But with Prescott, I don't know. I think there just needs to be more of a sample. He's played some good games this year. Since the Elliott suspension, that's when the struggles have really set in. But Dallas just hasn't been good on any side of the ball. I think that's really, what they have to do is play this out. He's a talented guy. I think he's a good quarterback. Maybe get him a pass catching option or two. I think he'll make it out of this. I'm not too worried about him yet.
So, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here, but you mentioned distraction. So, should a team trade 2 first-round picks for Elliott, or?
No, this is a difference here. No, this is different. I mean, there's just
because one is a serious problem.
One distraction is something that's going to be gone pretty soon. Okay, I mean, it's like with the whole Brady, the Flake game. The Elliott suspension is not a distraction anymore because it's been decided, it's done. But Odell Beckham Jr. is still going to rant and rave on the sideline and
how
do stupid
how
things.
Do you know Elliott's not going to continue to do bad things off the field?
Because you really want to hope this guy's learned his lesson, because the next time he does something, it's going to be legal. I mean, it is going to be. I mean, look, the first time you get in trouble with the NFL, that's one thing. The second time, we're going to be talking let's put it this way: if he gets in trouble again, like this type of thing, instead of 6 games, it's going to be a whole season. Okay, so I think that this serves as a deterrent that he needs to say, hey, something. And we can't. We're not going to get into the whole did he actually do something? Okay, because that's been debated in other spots, and I'm not going to get into that whether something actually happened. Okay, what happened is the NFL suspended him for 6 games. That's what happened. So there's a record now with the NFL, and if he gets in trouble again, the second suspension is going to be longer. That's just the way it works. Okay, so we'll see.
Let me ask you a question, Chris. Answer honestly. Who would you rather have on the Dolphins in 2018? Odell Beckham or Jarvis Landry?
Jarvis Landry.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, Jarvis Landry.
Oh, that's a dog take.
It's not a dog take because
Wow.
I think I'm sorry, I'm loyal to my guy. Okay? I'm loyal to my guy. And I want to see Jarvis Landry remain in a Dolphins uniform as long as he's playing in the NFL. He's my guy. It's my favorite player on the team, and that's the guy I want to see with my team, and I'll take him over Odell Beckham Jr. any day of the week.
Because you bought your daughter that jersey, isn't it?
It's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with that.
I want my investment to last.
No, it's got nothing to do with that. I'm telling you, I love Jarvis Landry's effort. He may not have the numbers Odell Beckham Jr. has. I'll admit that. It's very easy to say that. But I love the way this guy plays hard every single down. And he blocks. And he blocks hard. And he makes plays, okay? I've seen him take short passes, break a couple tackles, and turn it into a big gain, okay? So he doesn't have the big numbers yardage numbers, by the way, that, I don't think it's Beckham. I don't think it's all his fault, okay? I mean, look who's throwing to him this year. And I really think that if Tannehill hadn't gotten hurt, Jarvis Landry would be having an amazing season this year. And like I said, no way. I would take Jarvis Landry over Odell Beckham Jr. 7 days of the week and twice on Sundays. So there we go. I'm loyal to Juice.
Aqua and orange colored glasses, I say.
Nope.
All right. We went a little long today, so I think we'll wrap up there unless you guys have any major objections.
Spirited podcast.
That
I
was-
enjoyed it.
That was a good one. All right. We'll wrap up there. Until next time, this is Justin Ritzel for Robert Harding and Chris Sciria. We'll see you next time.